Hey there, it's Mackenzie, your host of Winning. We're looking for sponsors for the podcast. If you have a business that you would like to promote to thousands of people, send us an email at podcastwinning@gmail.com or send us a message on social media. I cannot wait to hear from you. Now on to the show.
Winning is your guide to making it in business. Join our award-winning host and entrepreneur, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and special guests in casual conversations that will educate and inspire you on your business journey. Winning will help you learn the hard lessons the easy way with guidance from celebrated entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's fun. It's informative. It's winning.
Hello, welcome to Winning. I am your host, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and today's guest is Jessica Willis. Hi, Jess.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. I'm really glad that you're on today. Before we record these episodes, we usually talk for 3 to 5 minutes. Jess and I think have been talking for like 20. I'm like, we should have hit record a long time ago. But I feel like I already know you and we really just met.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way. So that's great. That's a true host, right?
Well, thank you. So Jess is a relationship-driven entrepreneur who thrives in the fast-paced world of executive and professional recruitment as a trusted partner and consultant with Summit Search Group. She headhunts, and it goes way farther beyond job placements, which I can tell you because we just talked about that. And it is a strategic process that fuels business growth while ensuring candidates feel valued, engaged, and inspired in their new roles. Jess has tons of experience in industries like tech, finance, insurance, construction, and she is also got her designation of Certified Talent Management Professional, which I think that sounds very, very like fancy. It's a fancy title.
It makes me sound more important. Yeah,
I really like it, and that's from the Canadian HR Academy. So that's cool. I love that title, though. A talent management professional, certified.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Jess. I'm really excited. We've never had anyone like you on the podcast before. So I'm excited to bring some value to people that are listening about employees and recruiting people and finding the right people for your business. And I think that's so important for success.
Amazing. My favorite thing to talk about. So we're aligned.
That's awesome. So how, maybe just in your own words, how did you get here? How did you get to be a recruiter, and you have your own business too? Just kind of give us a little bit of background, a little bit more about you.
Absolutely. So how did I get here? I graduated with a commerce degree, which is really great because it sets you up for the business world. But as you know, you have a million options. So when I graduated, I knew I was interested in marketing, but I was also interested in HR. So it was really kind of, I could go either way as someone who just graduated. I did end up joining a telecommunications company as an advertising planner, which was such an awesome gig to start with. In that role, I worked with marketing managers. I also worked with agencies. So I was essentially the middle person. So I got to understand the work of an external vendor and the stressors and the pace there. But I also got to work with a really large corporation where I was able to really see how people grow and navigate in their own careers there. After a few years of being an ad planner, which was also so fun, I got to work on commercials and radio ads. And,
That's cool.
We were kind of chatting about newspapers before this podcast started, but I remember being so stressed out waiting for the local newspaper to come to make sure everything was spelled properly and I didn't make any mistakes.
It's like the Stone Ages now when we're talking about the newspaper, but it's so true. That's what we use.
That was
20 years ago.
There was no delete or, edit or anything there. But oddly enough, I actually reached out to a recruiter because as someone that was working for this large company, I understood, my trajectory there, but I was really curious, having been with that company for 3 years, what some other external opportunities look like. And I knew I was really interested in continuing with marketing. So when I reached out to them, my entire intent was really just long-term. I wanted to create a relationship. I wanted to share, certain jobs I'd be interested in. I was not actively looking whatsoever. And I kind of said in the next 3 years, these are some of the goals I have. If anything comes up, let me know. As luck would have it, about 6 months later, they did find me an opportunity, which was a people leadership opportunity. So a bit of imposter syndrome kind of snuck in there.
Yeah.
But the hiring manager at the time, honestly, is responsible for my career really taking a turn. He saw something in me that, quite frankly, I still wasn't really aware of, and hired me to lead a team of 3 people at that time who had decades of experience. So I was younger than everyone with no experience in the industry and no experience leading a team. So
that would have been intimidating.
It was the most intimidating, but when I started, one of the things I decided was, please don't call me the sales and marketing manager. Call me the sales and marketing lead. I want to earn respect of my team. I want to understand the industry, and then I will grow into that role.
Yeah.
Which I did, and continued and built up the team from, I think it was 3 to 15 people.
Whoa.
In the course of 8 years. It was an amazing job with a great organization that I respect so much still today. And honestly, I do some work with them as well, which is always really rewarding. But there came a time following, I think it was my second mat leave, where I had this feeling where I just wasn't connecting and collaborating one-on-one with people as much as I could. As you grow in your career and add levels, that support you, you lose some of that one-on-one time. And I certainly explored options internally, and timing's everything. There really wasn't anything there. Yeah. So I decided I was going to reach out to a recruiter in the city just to get his sense on the market and what he was seeing and different jobs out there, just from a curiosity standpoint. In that meeting, I think we sat together for half hour, and by the end of the meeting, he said, I think you'd be a great fit for our team. And I was so shocked. I was like, well, I don't have an HR background. He said, well, we're marketers. We market opportunities. We market candidates. And I think that could be something that you'd really enjoy, given what you've really described could be a potential gap right now. And I essentially got in that elevator to go home and knew right away that that's really what I wanted. So I've been with Summit Search Group for the last 5 years. A little different in being an external team member, but an extension of a business instead of grooming and hiring your own team. But I really, really enjoy working in different industries, meeting a lot of people, learning about brand new roles every day, and really becoming an expert on how to find people that would be best suited for those roles.
Yeah, that's such a cool journey, because you kind of had 2 points where you had an opportunity that wasn't probably what you saw yourself in, but look how awesome it's worked out for you.
It did. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm really lucky.
That's cool. And tell us a little bit more about recruiting. I think we were talking before we started recording, and you kind of talked about how you're kind of like a real estate agent with supply and demand. I thought that was so interesting, because I think back of myself as an employer, I was always, when you're looking for something, you're just looking for a person, but you didn't have that other side where, oh, I have somebody that I think might want to work here. I should approach them, right? So just kind of give us a little bit more info on that.
For sure. And I guess just a quick comment before I jump in on that, it is definitely a world of who you know. But I think when people use that phrase, it's almost like, well, if I don't know people, I'm not fortunate. Like, I don't get this opportunity. Yeah. The way I look at it is you need to create your own path and find ways to find the right people. You have to advocate for yourself. You really have to kind of get in there, ask the right questions, and then those opportunities will present themselves. But there's so many clients that I will work with, and they're like, hey, I'm thinking about hiring someone that will manage all of our creative materials and come up with new strategies and maybe start a podcast for our company. what do you think of that? And then right away, I know that's a plan of theirs, and I can start passively looking and thinking about people that might fit that. So outside of, what I'm about to share is our kind of regular process. I'm also used many times as a consultant because I do have that network, and I do understand how different types of organizations work, whether you're a startup or a nonprofit or a larger company. And then I can get a sense of really what the fit is. But overall, with Summit Search Group, our mission as consultants is to really serve as partners to the organizations that we work with for our valued clients.
Yeah.
We're committed to developing and delivering permanent solutions. And so we approach our vetting and headhunting process in the passive and active markets. And what that means is, passive being people who are fully engaged in their jobs. They're not actively looking. They're happy. And then those that are at a point right now where they're like, okay, I'm active. I'd like to get moving on a new opportunity.
Yeah.
Our primary responsibility as consultants to our clients is to streamline recruitment of exceptional talent. So really bridging aspirations of candidates that are looking for these fresh or open to these fresh opportunities with the needs of our clients to search for outstanding future employees. So we really shoulder, I would say, the extensive responsibilities of the sourcing and the strategic marketing of an opportunity, the vetting, the conducting of initial interviews, asking the tough questions that sometimes are a little awkward for employers to ask, whether it's about work environment or compensation or vacation or just general current dissatisfaction with an employer that a lot of people wouldn't ever bring up in a formal interview.
Yes, especially in your city or in your area, because who knows that person that knows that person, right? And that's a hard thing for people because you don't want to go into an interview and someone says, why are you leaving? Well, I don't agree with what the company's doing. And then that gets back to the company. Where if someone like yourself, you're not going to reveal that information.
No. And I always discourage candidates doing that when they're in an interview. And so my job, I guess, is I don't want to say I'm a therapist because absolutely not qualified, but to hear from you, what is missing or a gap, and then digging a little deeper to realize the core issue, which then I can share with the client because it really, most of the time, has nothing specific to do about a person. It's something that's missing that they need to find. So I can find a different way of getting that information and bringing it to my clients, because at the end of the day, if my clients can't provide an opportunity that matches that, there's no sense in us moving forward, with that candidate, because we really need alignment. So once I have this short list for my clients, so they're not looking at resumes, they're not reaching out to people, I'm doing all of that. What we do is we compile it, we put together candidate profiles. I work with candidates, on how they want to be presented and what they want me to share. So there's a lot of transparency in my process. And then ultimately, once that's presented, it's up to my clients to choose who they'd like to interview and at the end, who they'd like to hire. Yeah. We're there for support on both sides. So much like your real estate comment, I'm working with the buyers and the sellers. And, of course, I want something to end well. But for me, long-term permanency is most important. So awkwardly, sometimes I'm talking candidates out of moving forward with a job because something they've said, or I can tell that they're nervous about something. I know it's not going to be a long-term fit. On the other side, sometimes I'm, coaching and working with my clients to really remind them of the skill sets they were looking for that perhaps within our process we veered away from because we found something else that we were really excited about. Yeah. So every project has a different length and time frame, but I'm really grateful for all the people that I get to work with each and every day.
Yeah, and it's really, to me, finding the right people. It goes both ways, but finding the right person for your company, and on the other side, finding the right company for you is so important because I've talked about this lots before, but your job just isn't your job. You don't just go to your job and then you go home at 5 and that's the end of it. You're one person. So if what's happening at your job, or as the employer, what's happening with an employee isn't working, that causes problems everywhere, right? It's not just that you can turn it off because you left work. That's not how life works.
No. And we spend so much time with the people that we surround ourselves during the day. So for a lot of my clients, when I can tell they're really protecting a culture, and maybe someone seems easier to hire, if that makes sense.
Oh, yes.
If I've already had some flags and I know that my candidate won't be happy long term because X, Y, and Z. And then ultimately my client won't be happy because this will be an employee that's not engaged and potentially disgruntled and still looking for something new. So I really take the process seriously. And I think when I go to a party and someone's really curious about what I do, I really say I'm a corporate matchmaker. I need to make sure everybody's happy, everybody's getting their boxes checked off. And that's really where we see more alignment.
Yeah. And intrinsically for you, that's what brings you fulfillment, right? Because you want people to be happy in their position and you want the employer to be happy because that's a reflection of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's nothing worse than having someone in a job that isn't a good fit. I can say that as an employer and an employee, right?
You have experience on both ends. That's really valuable.
Exactly. And I think it's really funny. Before I became an entrepreneur, I had a few jobs and I had a similar path that you had. I had a commerce degree with HR and marketing. I worked for a telephone company. But my previous job that I had before I started my own business, I had the worst manager. I'll just put her out there. It was not a good experience. No one liked this person. To upper management, she, had a show about her. I'll say that they thought she was fantastic, but her employees were nobody was happy there. And my theory going into owning my own business was I'm going to be the exact opposite of her. And not that I need my staff to love me, because that's also not the way to go. You don't want to just, be a people pleaser to your staff. But there are so many things that I'm like, I'm not going to do this because that was done to me and this is how I felt. Right. And I think those experiences really helped me along the way, even if they were negative.
Have them. I know. That's what I was going to say is, I think when someone goes through something like that and is forced to do a bit of soul searching and figure out what's happening or what didn't work, it's really important. And honestly, when I have a potential client that reaches out to me and we talk about the role that we're looking to fill, one of the first questions I ask is, why is this role vacant? Is this new or did someone leave? Yeah. Why did they leave? Did you do an exit interview? What did they feel was missing? Because any step in that direction will really help me find a better fit for that position. Yes. So maybe they left because, they really needed something remote and this company wasn't able to offer that. Well, that's easy. Then we're just very clear on how we market the opportunity. Yeah. But maybe they were honestly just in the wrong job and the right company. So even learning about, is it skills? Is it culture? Is it just not great fit? Is it circumstance? That's really helpful when we're helping someone kind of find their next step as well.
For sure. And for a lot of people that are just starting out, so entrepreneurs, small business owners, depending what you have, lots of times you start with yourself and then you have to add people, or you need to start with a group of people because we need some sales and marketing, or we need a tech person or whatever it is. So what is your best advice for people so that they can find the best fit, as we just talked about, and the most qualified person for the job? Because it's really going to be a mix of both.
It's a great question. And I mean, the answer to that can change, but I would say in general, to truly stand out as the most qualified candidate, I would say it's essential to approach the opportunity with diligence and thoroughness. And what I mean by that is ask the questions about culture, ask the questions about history. If you're not working with a recruiter who's going to provide you this information as a candidate, ask the questions of the company, see where there's alignment, where their values are at. Show up, do research. There's so many interviews. When I was a hiring manager, I'm not sure about yourself, but people would come in for the interview and I'd say, what do you know about our company? And they'd say, I'm hoping you'll tell me today.
Yeah. Nothing
Very
really
easily. They could have rattled off, Googled and rattled off one sentence, and that would have just been satisfactory and we could have moved on.
Yeah. I had someone say nothing really. And I said, okay. And I mean, really, I just wanted to say, I think this is the end of this.
Yeah. I think we're done here.
Yeah. But same thing. I mean, as an employer, when someone sends me their resume, I have a mutual friend. I asked about, or there's things that you do as the employer. So you should do the same thing as the person looking at the company, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, as the employer, so as the entrepreneur and the small business owner, in terms of finding a perfect fit for the role, I think especially if you're starting small and have that culture that you want to protect, you really need to look at qualities like character, work ethic, professionalism. If this is going to be a face of your brand, you need to have that trust established, that likability very, very naturally, because this is your baby and you're protecting it. I think also someone who just has a general curiosity to them, asks questions, that carries an immense weight, because they too, with these questions, are really evaluating things that are important to them. And ultimately, it shows that they really want to make the best decision for themselves as well. They're not just looking for, a new gig or something to do for the next little while. They're really evaluating their career quite carefully.
Yep.
There have been some instances where I've had clients that have had smaller business, and perhaps they hire someone, or perhaps they're looking for someone with strong technical skills. But everyone that we meet really just doesn't have the passion and fire that my client has. So then I'll kind of go back to them and say, listen, we have some, more junior technical skills, a lot of people willing to learn, but I think we should really focus on character and how they present themselves and how they've already come to me as the recruiter and said, these 3 things I don't have experience in, but in my first 60 or 90 days, here's how I'm going to tackle that. And here's how I'm going to prove myself. Those are the people, when your company is small and you're looking to grow and scale, you need on your side.
I agree. So really, fit is probably outweighs skill at that time, right? Mm-hmm. And that's crazy because most people are probably listening thinking, what? But I agree. It's easier to help someone learn something than it is who they are is who they are. That's not changing.
Another interesting thing that I've seen too, especially with startups, is someone might hire, let's say, the head of strategy. Okay. This person breathes this company. They are passionate. They're likable. It's their favorite thing to talk about. They are 100% an ambassador. But maybe they're not great at their job. And that doesn't mean they're not great for the company. That might just mean that specific role isn't a good fit. So sometimes I'll almost turn down business. It sounds very strange, but I'll have someone reach out to me and say, we have this person in this role. They're not performing. We're really sad. We're going to have to let them go. And then I'm kind of doing some of my own coaching and counseling to say, well, what are they good at? And is there a way that you can keep them? Because to lose an employee is a lot. Whereas if you can kind of split their role up and have them focus on a different area and then maybe move this over into a different basket, sometimes that can be helpful.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think you're right, especially in our world today. Lots of environments of business are fast changing and fast. Mm-hmm. I was saying before, I'm taking a digital marketing course through York University because that wasn't even a thing when I went to university. So there's so many things that change and evolve, and maybe what a person is doing today in 6 months is kind of past them, or they're not great at it. But that person that they are and the employee that they are is fantastic for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're way better off to find them things that they are good at and that they enjoy doing, and find someone else for the other stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's awesome. Are there certain characteristics or qualities that you should look at when you're hiring someone? And we kind of touched on that a little bit, but is there like kind of a top few that just make someone a really great person to have on your team?
Yeah, so certainly someone who has a general curiosity about them. I think especially if you are a smaller business, you want someone that will bring new ideas, be very
Yes.
proactive in doing some research, and someone who, like I said, really lives and breathes the company. I think when you get to a larger organization, those things are great. But ultimately, at that point, there's a lot of other people that might be, steering that ship as well.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say it's less important, but it doesn't have as heavy of a weight as when you're a smaller business. Um, Certainly someone that, at a first impression, you feel could be also a really great ambassador for your business. Often when I do intakes, and so what is that? I meet with a client and they'll share a little bit about the position. Each and every time I put them on the spot to share why they're still with this company, because nothing is better than social proof and a
Yes.
testimonial from a real person. I think it's great if I share with a candidate, they have such a strong culture. On Fridays, they have potlucks. This week, they all go volunteering. It's great. But if I share, Lindsay, who's a hiring manager, said there's no way she could leave because every time they complete a project, she's so excited to see it evolve and see it grow and see what happens next. That's the social proof. So you
Yeah.
want someone that can be speaking in a very positive and very genuine way that's all true about your company, because these are the people that will get others to stay, to be retained in the company, and also to be in that, future lineup of people saying, I'd love to work with a company like yours.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I think too, just a little nugget I got out of there was on the flip side, I have not had a job interview for probably 15 years. Like it's been a long time, but I remember fresh out of university and those first kind of few years thinking like I have to be just ultra professional and very like polished. And I don't know that I let my true self come out. I'm very outgoing and I'm very talkative. And I think it's because I was like, well, I want to put my best face forward. And probably that was a detriment.
And it can be. And I think, you want to be able to demonstrate who you are as a human being, because on day one, you want to feel comfortable at
Yeah.
work. And you
Yeah.
also want to work with a company that respects who you are.
Yes.
When we put together candidate packages for our clients, I don't really talk about personal stuff as much, but I do make it a little more personal than achievement focused. The achievements are great. But like as an example, say, in her tenure with this company, Mackenzie was able to increase conversion of customers by X%, which she shares was one of her proudest moments because she worked so hard and she was able to, change things in the most dramatic way. And what was most important to her is that her customers felt seen and heard and valued. That's more the personal side that
Yeah.
companies, I should say, buy into, because they want someone who cares and feels proud and feels intrinsically motivated as well.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing I just thought about too, I don't even have written down here, but it's probably beneficial to do multiple, we'll say interviews, but whatever that is, meetings, what have you, with a person. So you really
Mm-hmm.
get a feel for them.
So one of my clients, this is probably my favorite structure, is they had a formal interview, in an office setting. asked a lot of the behavioral and situational questions.
Yeah.
Maybe the second interview, if there was one, and it was a creative role, they invited them to put, a quick assignment together or share their portfolio or talk about what their strategic plan could be in 3 slides, something quick and easy.
Yeah.
And then the third, which is my favorite, is meeting them in a neutral setting, whether it's for breakfast or coffee or lunch. That's when our guard comes down. We're
Yes.
not in a stuffy formal setting. We're eating. We're kind of just chatting about our weekends or our day. And it's less stressful for the candidate. So you're able to see how they ultimately would be day to day. Not everyone interviews well. And sometimes someone will be incredible on paper, and my meeting with them went so well, but they get in a little more of an intimidating setting and they freeze right up.
Yeah.
But then they didn't answer the questions. And then they weren't able to really prove themselves because it was a situation that really didn't lend itself to that. So I love an informal meeting to really finalize that decision at the end.
That is really great advice. So backtracking a little bit before you get to the interview or the meeting, or from the employer side, but what are some things that really set people apart on their resume or CV? Is it resume or CV now? Because I feel like I say resume and I'm so old school, but CV is it?
Well, CV is a different format. I would say it's still resume.
Okay.
But this is, so when I meet with a candidate and I don't have a job that fits with what they're looking for, I always try and leave them with some sort of advice.
Yeah.
So often I'll say, let's pull up your LinkedIn and go through it together. I love giving feedback. I don't create profiles. I don't write resumes, but I'm very good at editing because I can tell people what I look for.
Yeah.
So with resumes, my latest advice, it's not popular because it's more work.
Well, hey, you know what? Sometimes the not popular is the way you got to go because it's what gets you the results.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's to customize everything. So I think, for the last few decades, the advice has been customize your cover letter.
Yes.
Make sure you're sending it to someone and it's specific and plug in the job name and plug in the company name.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people don't do that. And I get somebody else's cover letter. Yeah.
I'm really interested in working for your company and it's a totally different name.
Oh, all the time. Wow. All the time.
Yep.
Or I'll get dear sir or madam. It's very easy to see who posted a job. And if that's not there, at the very least, to the hiring manager of X position, at least you're showing that you've demonstrated that.
Yeah.
So customize everything. What I mean by that is, yes, the cover letter absolutely needs to be customized. A big suggestion I have in resumes and cover letters is to use some of the lingo that was in the
posting?
job ad.
Yes. Yes.
So as an example, in sales, if a job posting has business development as a requirement and someone's terminology that they use is prospecting, if it's a larger company and it gets sent to an applicant tracking system, it might actually flush out that resume, even though they're completely qualified, because it didn't use the same words. Yep. If it says sales achievements or conversion, try and use similar words in yours so that it makes sense. My job is to review resumes and cover letters, but a hiring manager that has a bottom line to oversee, people to see, strategies, planning, they don't have time to go line by line to see if something makes sense. So try and use similar, I would say, verbiage. In a cover letter, I would always say have at least one paragraph. It could be 2 sentences long on why you're interested in that specific company. Not job, company. What you know of them. If there are any gaps, if you see a posting and you're like, ooh, I don't have 5 years experience, I have 2, but I have everything else. Talk about it. Say, as you can see, I am a little lighter on the experience that you're looking for. However, here's some informal experience that I've had that really lends itself to this role. Or in a volunteer capacity, this is what I was overseeing. So try and just address the elephant in the room. So that's the cover letter. Resume, I still think you should customize. We were chatting earlier about marketing. So if someone had a more general background, but more recently had more specialized experience, and they were applying for a more specialized role, you want to pull out specialized experience. You want to get metrics in there that really align with what the company is looking for. As an example, I was working on an email marketing manager opportunity, very focused on open rates and conversions and very metrics focused on email and content. I had someone who was a director of marketing apply for the position, but all of their experience that they had on their resume was really focused on newspaper and out-of-home ads and social media. So it didn't really lend itself to the role at all. Now, this person reached out to me directly and said, I was really surprised that you didn't call me about it because I have X, Y, and Z experience with email marketing campaigns. Well, that's exactly what I needed to hear.
Yeah.
But
how would you know, right? If it's not on there.
And sometimes timing isn't on your side. So take the time. If you're really excited about a job, take the time, use the language, customize it, share with passion why you think it's a great opportunity, and share the achievements that lend itself to the role.
That is fantastic advice. And I think as the employer looking at that, let's say you got 10, just to say 10 resumes, and 6 people have Sir, Madam, and just a general copy paste thing, and 4 have this. I bet you those 6 are filed under G for garbage.
Yeah.
Right?
That, and also, when you see a posting, I realize not everyone would know what Summit Search Group is, but if you're going to apply to a company, maybe take a look at who they are. So often I get cover letters, Dear Sir or Madam, I'm so excited about the warehouse manager opportunity with Summit Search Group.
Huh?
And it wasn't with Summit Search Group. It's with a client of ours. And I'm polite. I'll respond and say, listen, it's not with us. We're a recruitment agency.
Yeah. Oh, it's with this. Yeah. It's with Summit Hair Care or hair in the hair industry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh boy. Yeah. I think as the employer, when you get that should be one of the things that you're really looking at on their resume, not just their experience, but like you say, that shows that they're really interested because they took the time to look at your company. They took the time to look at the job and say, hey, I would be good at this job because of these things. And I also really like when you said to kind of own up to the things that you didn't really hit on there.
Mm-hmm.
Because, maybe I don't have as much experience as you're looking for, but I have this, and this, which could go along with it, or whatever it happens to be. As the employer, that would really stand out to me.
Another thing that I would suggest now that we're talking about it is, especially in the tech world where there is a lot of terms and contract positions.
Yeah.
When someone on their resume has that they worked at this tech company as a software developer, if it was a term or a contract, put that in brackets.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it might just look like you're hopping around.
Yeah.
And someone like me would ask, so what happened here? What spurred all these changes? And the answer would be, oh, they were all contract. Great. Write it in there. Because again, a hiring manager isn't going to go through the lengths to contact someone to ask why there's a lot of movement in their resume. They'll just assume that there's not a lot of longevity there and they move on.
Yeah. And is that a red flag for you if you're an employer looking and you see someone every year, every other year has a new job? Is that something that should concern you?
It depends on the resume. It depends on the industry. So I have worked with clients that aren't really as concerned about longevity. I think an ideal time frame, if on average, would be 2 to 5 years. If you were with a company for 1 year, but then with the next company for 5 years, That's
It's
totally
okay.
fine.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying if you're with a company for a year and it's not contract or term, someone like myself, again, would ask, so what was missing? Because that could just be someone trying to figure out where they fit and just who
Yeah.
hasn't had an opportunity to use their skill sets. And that's when my role as a marketer of this profile comes in, because I can explain that to my clients. But I would say the number one red flag for many resumes that I send in that maybe have a little bit of movement is the fact that they've moved around too much and they're just not comfortable with that.
Yeah. Well, and I get it, because when you take the time and money really you're investing in someone when you hire them. So you take that time, you bring them on, you train them, and you get them to the spot where this person is rolling. This is great. And then they quit. And there's nothing worse than that, because you did the job you were supposed to do to have someone in that spot, and now you have to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that for me, anyways, if I saw they worked at 4 different clothing stores in 1 year time, I'm like, can they not get along with people? Do they not listen to instruction, or what's the problem? And maybe that's just a bias that I had, but it would make it so that I didn't interview that person.
And I think it's definitely changing in terms of average time. Like I would say 5 years ago, 10 years was a great time to
Yeah.
leave a company. And now I think if you've been with a company for 20 years in the same job, that could also be seen as a negative too. Because
Yeah.
if an employer wants to hire someone that wants to grow and develop, maybe you do. But if you've had the same job, it just shows that you haven't taken the initiative to do that. I say that everyone has a different circumstance, but on the flip side, if you've worked with a company and you've had 7 jobs in your time there and each one shows your evolution, I think that's great. And it just shows that you're constantly picking up new skills, or maybe there's a pivot. Maybe you went from sales to marketing, or marketing to sales, or to a leadership role, or to a specialist role. It just shows that you're collecting a new set of skills and learning a little bit more on really where you can kind of give your stamp of value.
Yeah, for sure. And when we were talking before, this also question came up, and I hadn't really thought about it much, but you said now that you get, I guess you always have, but the top questions that you get about opportunities where, we often think it's compensation, but it's not always just compensation. So as an employer, what are some questions, I guess, you should be aware about when you're looking to hire someone on that you need to be prepared to answer?
Absolutely. And, as I said to you, Mackenzie, this is changing too. So 5 years ago, it was all about compensation. Then throughout the pandemic, it was about work environment, which is still really quite important. But you'd be surprised that remote or hybrid isn't always the most important thing to people. And now we've really pivoted to amount of time to maybe unplug and have some of that personal time. So in the last 6 months, I've had more offers, kind of in limbo because of the vacation component. And many employers are offering more money in lieu of that, but that's not the number one driver. Many candidates, in fact, are like, if I could just get that extra week, I could actually take a little less money because that time is more important to me.
Yeah, that's such a great point, because I mean, even me as an employer, I thought compensation benefit, you think of those certain things, but if that's not what's important to someone, it's not going to make them want to work for you more, right? Like, no, that's such a great point. So thank you for that. See, this is where all this visiting before we start recording just really comes in handy. We learned so much more that we didn't even think about. Jess, do you have a most important lesson that you can share when you're looking for someone for a spot in your company?
Yes. Fire fast, hire slow.
I agree with that 100%. And it's okay to get rid of people, isn't it?
And it's so heartbreaking. And I really empathize with some clients of mine that are just really torn up because this is an employee that's been with their organization for a long time. And there's been so many instances where they're like, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, they call me and they will say, it has just gotten so much worse. We've had 2 other people leave now. So I always say, you want to have the right people on the bus. And if someone isn't good on the bus and they're making everybody else upset on the bus, or they're just not allowing the bus to move forward, it's devastating for people to be let go. But it's also a really great reminder that not everything has to be permanent, and they will find something else. And in the most ideal sense, it might be something that's a better fit for them. And then on the flip side of that, sometimes I think, someone gets a resume, they're like, I'll just have a quick call with them and then hire them. And then 2 weeks later, they might, discover that this person just didn't really feel like coming into work a lot of the time. And that was a requirement, right?
Yeah. So yeah, you should come to work.
I say definitely have more than one interview. If you're looking at a candidate, ideally have one more formal, one informal. And if you've really exhausted your options with a current employee and it just doesn't feel right, do them the favor and let them go. Because outside of providing them some financial support for their life, there's no other favors if you're not being honest.
I always ask people if there was something they wish they had known or wish they had known sooner or could tell their younger self. And just exactly what you talked about was something that I wish that I had known years ago when I had my business, because you're right. Someone that's not a good fit, it causes other people to leave, or it causes tension or stress in your business, which affects everything else. And it's kind of that when you said, well, it's hard, so people don't like doing it. Letting someone go is hard. But guess what? Then it's done.
Mm-hmm.
Your problem's gone, right?
And honestly, it's the same when someone's going to quit. A part of my process is really supporting candidates when they're quitting their current role and helping them through that, because I think the lead up is the worst part. And once they do it and they've disappointed someone, it's over. There's nothing else that can be done. And there's a very tasteful way to resign from a company. And if a hiring manager or if a manager doesn't handle it well, that's also a really good indicator on, just leadership style as well.
Yeah, for sure. Jess, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me. I've had so much fun.
Me too. And this is stuff that we don't really talk about a lot in business. When I had my store, I would talk to other friends in my network that had businesses, and, you ask them questions about this, or you maybe, hate to say it, but complain about an employee, and what do I do? Do I let them go? Oh, I'm going to hire this person. Have you heard that? You ask a lot of your friends, but I don't think we talk about this stuff as much as we should. And really, it's essential for your success. Mm-hmm. So thank you for being here and sharing your expertise with us. Where can people find you?
So LinkedIn is really where I live and breathe. I'm always excited to meet new people. So if you'd like to connect with me there, it's Jessica Willis if you just search for it. And again, with Summit Search Group. Or you can find me on our website, www.summitsearchgroup.com. And then if you go to team, you can find me and get my email there. And then I also have a website, which is jessicawillis.ca.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being on. I have some nuggets here. I'm not looking for any staff right now, but you never know what's going to happen. But thank you so much for being on, and everyone that's listening, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to Winning. Be sure to subscribe to get all of our new episodes. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, and leave a rating and review wherever you listen to Winning. To catch all of the latest from us, you can follow Winning Podcast on Instagram at winning_podcast, Facebook at Winning Podcast, and on Twitter at Winning Pod. Winning was created and is produced by me, Mackenzie Kilshaw. Music created by Summer Furby. Editing by Seth Armstrong. Special thanks to Shauna Foster for voicing our opening. And of course, a huge thank you to this episode's guest. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.